Good evening. This meeting of the Baltimore City Council Health, Environment, and Technology Committee is now called to order. I am Councilwoman Danielle McCray, representing the 2nd District and Chair of the committee. In attendance, we have Councilman John Bullock from the 9th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We have Councilwoman Felicia Porter from the 10th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We also have Councilman James Torrance of the 7th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And we have Councilwoman Odette Ramos of the 14th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Tonight. And also in attendance, we have Matthew Peters, who is our dear staff to our committee. And Councilman Conway. Apologies. Councilman Conway has joined us, and he is from the 4th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So before we get started, please take a moment to turn off or silence your cell phone. Also, for any members of the public who would like to testify, there is a sign-in sheet in the back of the room. Please sign in and check the appropriate box to indicate that you wish to testify if there is anyone from the public tonight. Today's hearing is on Legislative Oversight 22-0019, Quarterly Legislative Oversight Hearing, Department of Public Works, for the purpose of calling for quarterly oversight hearings for the Department of Public Works regarding agency operations, staffing, safety of fleet, facilities and equipment, and other responsibilities to improve the transparency and accountability in serving the residents of Baltimore City and others. We're going to start with a presentation from the Department of Public Works on the functions and performance of the Bureau of Water and Wastewater. And committee members, we will have an opportunity to ask questions during and after the presentation, and then we're going to move on to public testimony. And Director, you have the floor.
Perfect. Good afternoon, Chairwoman McCray and members of the STEAM Health, Environment, and Technology Committee. My name is Jason Mitchell. I'm the Director of the Public Works Department here in Baltimore City. First, I want to thank you for this opportunity to inform the public about the great work of the Department of Public Works and the many folks that are providing water from our Water and Wastewater Bureau. As you know, Baltimore is proud to have some of the best water in this region and this nation, and we're excited as DPW to be able to provide that. This presentation will give more information about the excellent programs, learn about our successes, but also hear about some of the challenges that we face here in Baltimore City, DPW. The women and men of the Bureau of Water and Wastewater have been working extremely hard 24/7 during this pandemic to provide essential services to Baltimore City and this region. The core of those services are water delivery and processing, wastewater processing and delivery, stormwater maintenance, capital improvement delivery and inspection, plan review, asset manage, and a host of other programs that you will hear today. My commitment as your Director of the Department of Public Works is to ensure we meet the needs of all of our citizens, to ensure that staff have the tools to do their job, and create a safe, healthy, equitable, and inviting city to ensure those living and working in Baltimore have a good and wholesome experience. As we move forward with this presentation, our Bureau Head of the Bureau of Water and Wastewater, Mr. Joseph Cabetta, will speak to what our teams have been facing, what they have accomplished, and how we are looking to support this critical aging infrastructure in the years and decades to come. I will hand this presentation off to Mr. Cabetta to present, and then I will conclude the presentation at the end and answer any questions that you may have. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Director Mitchell. Good afternoon, Councilwoman, Council Chair McRae, and esteemed members of the Council. My name is Joseph Cabetta. I'm the Bureau Head for the Bureau of Water and Wastewater. I do want to quickly introduce members of the leadership team within the Bureau of Water and Wastewater really quickly, starting with Ms. Debbie Pitts, who was the Chief of the Water Facilities Division. Azam Ahmad is a engineer supervisor with the Office of Engineering and Construction. Mohammed Rahman is the Chief Technical Officer for the Bureau of Water and Wastewater. We also have James Patrick, who is the Chief of the Utility Maintenance Division. We have Brian Ball, who is the Chief of the Office of Asset Management, as well as Ramona Harry, right behind me, who is the Special Projects Lead, and Kedrick McIntyre, who is my Administrative Affairs Manager. Have I missed anybody from our team? Just the Bureau team. Of course, the rest of the DPW leadership team is also here, as you know. Okay, so quick agenda, and I am aware that you have hopefully had a chance to review the slides prior to this meeting. We will move with reasonable pace. Want to first cover the Bureau of Water Wastewater, or overall some basic stats and figures, cover some key Bureau-wide initiatives that we are engaged in, and then finally delve a little deeper into each of the divisions and their core competencies and challenges. This is the org chart. Core principles and core values that are very critical for the business that we're in, and later on in the slide we'll make some connections to these core principles and values. And overall responsibilities for the position of the Bureau head, as well as the Bureau administration team, are listed in this slide. As you can see, setting the vision and ensuring that we're all in one accord, driving towards the vision is a key responsibility for this office. Some key challenges that also represent three key priorities for us: human capital, making sure that we have people, quality people, adequate number of people in our bureau is critical. Procurement, overcoming some of the challenges with procurement is a priority. And then finally, training, making sure that our folks have access and opportunities to be trained and develop professionally. So the mission of the Bureau is captured in the city charter, as you can see here. Implicit in the city charter is the fact that these services that we provide cannot be interrupted, right? They are 24/7, 365, even during a pandemic. So the women and men of the Bureau of Water and Wastewater have been at it nonstop all this time. So I do want to make that point, that it is a very critical function that the Bureau provides, or service that the Bureau provides. Starting with the source of our water, as Director Mitchell alluded to, the water that we have in the city of Baltimore and the surrounding region is actually some of the best in the country. We are very fortunate that we have relatively pristine source water that comes from 3 reservoirs that impound that source water: Pretty Boy, Loch Raven, and Liberty. We're also fortunate that based on topography, we do not have to pump from the reservoirs to our treatment facilities, which means our costs for delivering water are, compared to some of our peers, low. So these are some, again, stats and figures that you are likely familiar with. Our 3 water treatment facilities are Montebello 1 and 2 and Ashburton. And altogether, about 190 million gallons per day is our capacity for production. I should also note that our water services are, we have retail customers in the city of Baltimore, of course, but also in Baltimore County. We have a wholesale customer that is Howard County, and then we deliver raw water wholesale to Carroll County and Harford County. Our wastewater system, we collect and convey wastewater to 2 of the largest wastewater treatment facilities in the state, Back River and Patapsco. We also receive wastewater from parts of Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and Howard County. And these 2 wastewater facilities are advanced wastewater treatment facilities that treat wastewater to a tertiary level. Our stormwater system is comprised of 4 stormwater pumping stations, 1,200 miles of storm pipe. One thing that I would like to note is the city of Baltimore is fairly unique in this region, as from the beginning of infrastructure build out in this city, we kept our storm sewer system separate from the sanitary sewer system. That is unique. The older mid-Atlantic cities that you have, such as Philadelphia, Boston, most of these cities typically have combined sewer systems, which means that storm and sanitary is conveyed through the same infrastructure. So the fact that and a lot of these cities are implementing very costly capital improvement projects to separate. City of Baltimore is fortunate that we already have a separate system. This map shows you the extent of the Bureau. There are various satellite offices, depots, or yards. All the way up north, close to the Pennsylvania border, is where Pretty Boy is. And then, like I mentioned, Carroll County. In Carroll County, we have the Liberty Reservoir, and everywhere else throughout the city. This slide provides just a brief glance at our FY22 budget, operational budget north of $500 million. I will note that Program 674 funds not just the Bureau of Water Wastewater, but also the Office of Compliance and Research, which is separate from the Bureau. And as far as the capital improvement program, around $270 million for FY22. A lot of that is dedicated to the water fund, which includes facilities like Montebello, as well as the buried infrastructure, the water mains. Brief overview, Bureau-wide, we have almost 1,500 funded positions with a vacancy rate of about 29%.
Okay, and Bureau Head Cabetta, I'm going to pause right there just to ask a few questions that I have regarding staffing.
Okay.
And the first question is going to be, how does the current staff vacancy rates for the Bureau and its divisions compare to the pre-pandemic vacancy rates?
We have had a slight uptick in the vacancy rates. I can get you the specific numbers. But we are, the 29% is obviously a number that we want to come down from, and we're working through with our HR department to enhance our recruiting process, recruiting procedures, identify candidates, and place qualified candidates to fill these very important positions.
Okay, I want to ask the second question and just check in and see if we have any additional questions regarding the slides that we've went over so far. Are the number of funded staff positions for each division sufficient for them to sustainably meet their responsibilities?
The short answer is no. We are looking to, we need to fill the vacant positions. The challenge that we have now is we might have overtime numbers going up due to the fact that personnel might have to work double shifts to cover where there's a gap in coverage. But like I mentioned earlier, despite the vacancy numbers, despite the fact that we had a pandemic that exacerbated the vacancy rates, we have maintained our service level in terms of providing drinking water of high quality and maintaining all the other operations throughout the Bureau.
Okay, and as a follow-up to that, what are DPW's short and long-term strategies to ensure adequate staffing, particularly at the facilities that are providing our drinking water and our wastewater treatment? What are your short and long-term goals to fill the 29% vacancy rate, or at least lessen that number?
So long-term, and there's a slide further down focused on workforce development, making sure that we are reaching as far back as high school students and trade schools and other academic institutions, exposing them to careers in DPW, providing training program focused on water and wastewater operation, as well as construction management and inspection. So that will pay dividends in a few years, as we'll have a cadre of qualified young Baltimoreans who will be able to fill a lot of these vacancies. In the short term, what we are doing is we are engaging in a systematic approach to succession planning through a knowledge capture process, where we are ensuring that any folks that are retiring or departing for whatever reason, when they leave, the institutional knowledge does not leave with them. And so we have a systematic approach to making sure that we retain that institutional knowledge and pass it on for the successors.
Okay, I'm going to hold any additional questions right now. Colleagues, did you have any questions from the slides that we just went through? Okay, we're going to...
I'd like to
Councilman Conway.
ask a further question, if it's okay with the chair.
It is.
With regard to the vacancies, have we considered at all for those vacancies? You mentioned using overtime. You mentioned also talking about a program to have younger people create a pipeline into the agency. I'm concerned about some of the more specialized positions. Have we considered maybe contracting out some of those resources? Is that an opportunity for us to begin to ensure that we can keep core services continuing going forward? Is that something we looked at?
I'm sorry, I missed the last.
Are we considering contracting out potentially? Have we thought about contracting out potentially some of the more specialized positions that need a higher level expertise that we have been unable to fill? Mm-hmm. Is that something that we can look into, or have we considered it?
So we are currently, we have staff augmentation contracts to obviously augment the capacity that we have at our water treatment plants and wastewater treatment plants. And that has been very useful in just alleviating the burden, if you will, on our staff. So as we go along and we see the need, we have that capacity and the experience in using consultants or other vendors, if you will, to provide those services.
So I just want to be clear, we are already thinking about that? We are doing that already?
We are already augmenting staff through contracts, yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, we'll let you continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving to Bureau-wide initiatives, before we delve into the divisions, the Sanitary Sewer Consent Decree Program is a long-standing program. The city signed the consent decree back in 2002, modified it in 2017. The purpose of the program is to rehabilitate, replace sanitary sewer infrastructure throughout the city. This modified consent decree is 2 phases, divided by a period of evaluation that we're in now. We are mostly complete. A lot of these projects were focused on lining sanitary sewers to restore the capacity for these pipes, also replacements and other types of projects. The pictures that you see, the top picture is one of our phase 1 projects, which was the Headworks project, the Back River. This was a successful project that was completed at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, and resulted in a reduction in sanitary sewer overflows, which is the primary purpose of the consent decree. To date, we have spent about $1.6 billion. The lower left picture is a project that was slated for phase 2 that we went ahead and did earlier. One, to alleviate the excessive number of sewage backups in that particular neighborhood, and then also just to kind of get ourselves ahead of the pace, if you will. And then the lower right is another project along Perring Parkway. So these are tunneling projects for the most part that allowed for upsizing of pipe or relief sewers or relief pipes to add more capacity. Within this program, within the consent decree program, we have the Expedited Reimbursement Program, which is designed to reimburse Baltimore City residents that experience sewage backups due to qualifying events, such as mainly due to wet weather. So if there's a rain event, the capacity of our pipes is such that it is not able to convey the flow adequately, and there's a backup into an individual's home. That is a qualifying event that this program is able to reimburse customers for costs for disinfection and cleaning. The SOS program, or the Sewage On-Site Support Program, is essentially the different side of the same coin, if you will. Same eligibility requirements as the Expedited Reimbursement Program. In this case, we've actually enhanced this program to provide direct cleaning services by qualified vendors. This alleviates the burden on the customer in that they do not have to come out of pocket for expenses. We contact them, the vendor goes to the house immediately after the event, does the cleaning and disinfection and disposal. So these programs, we have proposed to the regulators to implement the SOS program going forward in place of the Expedited Reimbursement Program, because we feel it's a little bit more beneficial to customers, and so we are waiting the response from our regulators on that request. We also have a relationship with HomeServe, a home warranty program for Baltimore City residents. Based on premiums paid, HomeServe can provide or does provide coverage for any replacement of sewer or water lines on the private side. That interaction or transaction happens separate and apart from us. Where we come into play is we have situations where there might be residents that do not have the HomeServe warranty, and as part of our relationship with HomeServe, there are hardship dollars that are set aside, and so we are able to use those hardship dollars to assist residents who would otherwise not have the funds to get their private side taken care of, the private side lines taken care of. And this program will be extended as we're advertising soon for a replacement contract. The lead and copper rule was revised in December of 2021 by EPA, and this rule requires the municipalities to ensure that the lead lines are taken out of the system. The city of Baltimore in the late 80s and early 90s had already implemented a program to replace public side lead lines. We do not have any lead in our mains. We have taken care of a significant amount of lead service lines, meaning from the main to the meter, which is on the public side. But there are still some lead lines left on the public side. So what we are doing now is we're working with our neighboring jurisdictions, Baltimore County, Baltimore City Schools, also because this new lead and copper rule requires sampling at city schools, elementary schools, and child care facilities. And we are hoping to take advantage of the funds that the bipartisan infrastructure law has set aside for lead line replacement. And if we are able to get those funds, we'll be able to work with residents for the replacement of private side lead lines. I quickly highlighted the core principles earlier slide. A couple of them that I wanted to touch on is, one is technology and innovation. We are a member of a community of practice, if you will, for technology adoption, more specifically water technologies. Aisle Utilities and the Technology Approvals Group affords us the opportunity to assess water technologies that might work for our scenario. We are a member of this organization along with international and national water utilities. And through this program, we are in the process of implementing two technologies. One is at Back River, a technology that would allow us to treat fats, oils, and grease coming into the influent and have a commercialized component of that fog through the separation that we'll be able to do. And then another one is Doppler, which is just an enhanced, a tool that will enhance our community engagement. In the event that there are emergencies that happen, water main breaks and SSOs, Doppler would allow us to engage directly and in an automated fashion with our customers. The other community of practice that we are a part of is the Water Environment Federation, or WEF. Within that, the Water Entrepreneurs for Successful Enterprises is an initiative that is designed to improve water utilities, again, around the country and around the world. And as part of that, we are leading an effort to assess our readiness as a water utility for change management and build a toolkit for implementing change management. Learning and development is a key element of that affects us bureau-wide. We have developed curriculum for our existing staff, for staff to develop professionally, gain certifications and licenses and what have you. We also have a roadmap that we've built that would provide any employee coming into work for the first time or has been a DPW employee for some time, a roadmap to how they can grow in their career and arrive at a more advanced or a higher level within the organization. And it provides them all the things that they would need to do, all the certifications that they would need to acquire, and it makes it very plain, if you will. That is on the internal side, and I've already highlighted on the external side, learning and development or workforce development, the program that we are initiating called Be More WISE. And in this case, WISE stands for Water Infrastructure Strategic Education. This, again, is focused on two tracks. One would be high school students, taking them from the summer of their sophomore year up until their graduation senior year, where they can co-op and then will be able to sit and pass exams to get certified. The other track is working with nonprofits like ROCA, Baltimore, and Park Heights Renaissance, and providing, again, the same type of curriculum, but this time in a more compressed time frame. Finally, community engagement. All the capital projects that we implement require extensive engagement with the community. One thing that we implemented during COVID is on a monthly basis, we started sending updates on every capital project for the affected community. And so that excerpt that you see up there is a sample of a letter that goes out to residents, alerting them to the various conditions or updates and projections. And then the pictures there show some of our DPW community engagement specialists in the community.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick pause. This is going to be our last pause before we allow you to complete the presentation. I have a few council members that have questions. We are going to start with Council Member Torrance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chief. I have a question about HomeServe. One, a little bit more background about, did we actually do an RFP for HomeServe? Because I'm getting feedback that's not positive from residents. So I'm wondering, before we extend any contract with HomeServe, that we do an evaluation of the process in which they're taking our residents through and the benefit they have conferred to our residents. Because I just want to make sure that from a customer service perspective, that while we may be benefiting, our residents may not, right?
Speak into the mic.
Excuse me. What I want to do is make sure that we have an adequate evaluation of HomeServe services to our residents. So what do the claims look like? How much is the actual cost being deferred onto our residents outside of the coverage that they currently have? Any caps that they have? Any negotiation on how we can extend those caps? Because if we have an actual policy and they come out multiple times and you hit that limit, then what benefit is there to continue to pay into the process? So I just want to make sure we reevaluate that. And then if we find that there isn't any conferred benefit to our residents, maybe we should think about entering into a different agreement with other companies to at least create some competition to benefit our residents as well. That's my question, but also my comment as well.
Thank you for that, Councilman Torrance. We're in the process of finalizing the request for proposal, and Mohammed Rahman is the Chief Technical Officer that oversees that program, and he can provide details about some of the enhancements that we are looking to make.
Thank you, Yusuf. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mohammed Rahman. I'm the Chief Technical Officer for the Bureau of Water and Wastewater. So to answer your first question, Council Member, we don't have any caps on the resident side. So the only requirement that the HomeServe has is like when somebody would purchase a new contract, they have to wait for a month before they can place a claim or something like that. That's the only requirement they have, and if they have multiple claims through years, they would just replace the pipe and stuff like that. There are no caps on how large the claim would be and all of that. We do have some numbers that we can share with how much money was spent in the last 8 years. The contract was initiated in 2014. Right now, they have spent about $5 million in the last 12 months just in Baltimore City itself, replacing all the service lines in the city. And since the beginning of the contract, they have spent about $26 million. The new RFP would be for the replacement contract. We are finalizing the replacement contract because the original term has ended. Within 6 months, we will be advertising and we'll have a new replacement contract. We are finalizing the RFP to make sure like we are including the new regulation that was released under the lead and copper rule.
Okay. So this is a request from me for the committee, because I have a resident who just brought up an issue with HomeServe who's been to their residence 3 times, and they shared a good brunt of the cost. So I want to actually know how much our residents have shared in the cost compared to what HomeServe said that they've actually kicked out. So if they paid out $26 million, how much has a resident actually come out of their pocket to pay towards a claim as well? And then whether or not we can evaluate whether or not there was preventative things that they could have done to prevent a future claim, which would then save costs on residents. I just want to make sure, because often with these policies, some things are kicked down the road to actually incur more costs to recoup the costs that they lost from other things. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
And we can talk to the HomeServe contacts and see if we can get that data for you.
Thank you.
We're going to go to Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and appreciate the presentation. So a couple of quick questions, and it's also regarding HomeServe. One, do you know the approximate utilization rate? What percentage of residents in Baltimore actually signed up for HomeServe? Do you know that?
I will ask to Mohammed.
So there are 3 different packages that they have. For the sewer service line, they have 6,229 contracts. For water service line, they have 12,045 contracts. And they also have a bundle for both water and sewer service line. That's 20,792.
So it seems like a small fraction of folks are actually utilizing it. Is that correct?
So the
thinking about
total
total
contract
population.
is about like 40,000, around 40,000 residents.
Okay, so it's not a high utilization rate, but some people, I know I have, but anyway, it's a longer thing. Okay, and then the other piece that you mentioned hardship dollars. Approximately, how large a pot of money are we talking about in terms of hardship dollars?
So on an annual basis, we get about $150,000 that city can utilize to assist customers who actually doesn't have any contract with HomeServe, or they don't have any warranty. And we use the qualification list under BS2O program and BS2O plus. So if a resident qualifies for BS2O or BS2O plus program, we straight away qualify them, and say if they had any issues with the water service line, we utilize those hardship dollars to kind of provide them some relief.
Okay, so you said about $150,000 total
Yes.
per year.
And once it gets exhausted, then we don't have any additional money. So we also have some provisions to pro bono funds, like the HomeServe company on their own has their own company dollars that they use to kind of assist customers. So, which we don't have any control to. They have their own process of qualification. So a resident can file for a pro bono funds, and the company has actually provided. We actually have a number for that. For pro bono funds, they have utilized about 278,000 since the contract began.
Okay, and then the last piece is just a follow-up in terms of if there is a new provider, what do you see happening with the current folks who are currently covered by HomeServe? Will there be any gaps in coverage? How do you anticipate that unfolding?
So the whoever would win the contract will have exclusive rights to work within Baltimore City. So we will have like a transition period. If you have any delays in awarding the contract, then we would have to extend the existing contract to make sure that transition happens on a certain date. We would have certain requirements of marketing the program to the residents. Right now there is a current marketing strategy, but then for a new program there will be an intensive marketing strategy that would be put in place.
Okay, I think just the best communication that we can have going forward would be fantastic. But thank you for your answers. I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Bullock. We're going to go to Councilwoman Porter.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I did have a question related to the applications and successful completion of the Expedited Reimbursement Program. How many applications have we received to date, and how many have been successfully remediated?
Mohammed has the numbers, I think, right?
Thanks, Yusuf. So for this year, we have received about 47. For fiscal year FY22, we have received about 47 applications under Expedited Reimbursement Programs. 3 of them are under review, but this year we haven't qualified any of those because a lot of them has been captured under SOS Program.
Okay, and so my next follow-up question is the SOS program. Same question, but different program.
Yeah, so under SOS program, in FY22, we qualified 13 residents, and in FY21, we qualified 17.
And what was the total applications?
So it's not based on applications, it's based on like how many calls has been made.
So how many calls have been made? So 13 out of a total number. I'm looking for a percentage.
So not all the calls that are made for building backups does qualify because the requirements for the SOS and BBRP are based on wet weather capacity related events. I think I do have some statistics in the feasibility report that I put. Give me 1 second.
Yes, sir.
So we in year 2021 we had about 526 wet weather basement backups.
Okay.
Out of that, only a portion of them would qualify as wet weather capacity related building backups. So out of that 526, only a portion would qualify for wet weather. We qualified under SOS program, we qualified in FY21, we qualified 17 of them.
So 17 out of the 500.
Since it was launched in March.
Okay, and so, and maybe this is an offline conversation, but I would like to really understand the additional 400 or so that were not qualified, because it seems like we're missing a huge catchment area as it relates to, you know, these weather-related events and these sewage backups from both programs. And so that may be an opportunity to kind of reevaluate and reassess those programs as well. My second question actually had to do with HomeServe. You mentioned that it was $150,000 related to hardship costs. Have you all currently exhausted all funds?
Absolutely.
And what is the eligibility requirement?
We have used the BH2O and BH2O qualification criteria. So if any resident is already part of BH2O, BH2O plus, and now water for all,
okay.
If they are in the list, we'll just use that as a qualifying criteria.
Okay, and how soon are those funds exhausted? Like, so if we're looking at a given year?
So sometimes we won't be able to exhaust it. So what we have done is like we have proactively, because if that money is not exhausted, then that goes away. So what we have done is we have introduced some proactive, what you call policies or programs. Like last year, director launched a proactive backflow preventer program that was officially launched last year, and we assisted about like 60 or 70 addresses. So folks who couldn't afford or who were part of BS2O, BS2O plus list, and who were having recurring building backups, we offered them free service to install a backflow preventer so that they won't have any future building backups. So we exhausted the whole money last year. Yeah.
Okay. I'll save my other questions for the next round. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I just have a quick follow-up to that one. You did speak about the regulator's approval. What's the expected timeline for the approval and the implementation of that change?
So we had a meeting with them earlier this week, or it might have been late last week. We're asking for a response. They've told us in a few weeks that they will get back to us. But the early indication is that they also agree with us that the SOS program is an enhanced version of the Expedited Reimbursement Program. So they might have some recommendations or tweaks that they want to make, but they're pretty much aligned with our thinking on the SOS program.
And you're looking towards them giving you some type of additional, you said within a few weeks?
They will be providing us an approval on basically, putting BBRP or the Expedited Reimbursement Program aside in favor of the SOS program. Like I said, it's the same coin, different side.
Okay. We're going to move to Councilwoman Ramos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two questions, one on HomeServe again, but this is related to a project that's happening in my district and also in the 7th district. We had an issue where we didn't receive notice of the project, and all of a sudden orange barrels were going up and people were wondering what was going on. And we've, I think, resolved the issue thanks to the DPW folks that we've met with. The additional concern was that because there was no notice of the project, residents couldn't sign up for HomeServe in time. And so I'm wondering if, because if a pipe breaks during the construction, then obviously it would, because it's a water main replacement. So we wanted to make sure that residents, would have a chance to actually get the pipe fixed if it needed to be fixed. So moving forward, are we changing the protocols now so that we don't have this problem again, where there's 30 days notice of a project so that people can get the HomeServe? Because we and the councilman will vouch on this too, we got zero notice of this project, and it was huge.
Okay, and I do remember the email exchange that we had about that. If you'll allow me to find out exactly what happened, because typically that is atypical. I'll put it that way. We are accustomed to, and our process is to notify residents, well in advance, especially if it's a planned project, a planned capital project. So if I could dig into that and then get back to you with a.
Well, I guess my main question, because I think we've resolved the communications issues. Mr. Wayman has been excellent coming with us to community meetings to explain the project. As we've been able to explain it to the residents. The issue really is, in order, like when big projects like that happen, can we make sure that people have enough time to then register for HomeServe? Because we have that 30-day gap, or whatever the insurance ends up being. We have that 30-day gap where they can't make a claim. So there has to be that kind of notice ahead of time so that folks would be able to do it. And then, if there's the hardship because they're in an area where, or they qualify for BH2O or Water for All now, that they have time to get it. So that's the issue, is this, when it comes to HomeServe, is
Understood.
that notice.
Understood. I don't see that being an issue as far as as long as we provide that advance notice, we would just need to make sure that HomeServe is aware, and we can work with HomeServe to make sure people have that opportunity to sign up.
Great, yeah, I'm just saying for the record, we need to have that notice ahead of time in order to make that happen, and all of the other logistics, because we had to work on closures, and it was a mess. But anyway, we're getting through it. The other question not related to that is you mentioned this new program, Be More Wise, to help sort of get this pipeline of young people into the careers, water careers. Is that going to replace the YH2O program, or is that in addition to the YH2O program?
It's an addition. It's not replacing YH2O.
So what's the difference between the two, if you don't mind?
Be More Wise is more technical in terms of the curriculum that is being built is specific to water and wastewater operation technician level content. And then the other track, like I mentioned, is construction management and inspection.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. Just a quick statement, it's, I look forward to whatever tour I can have of the Montebello plants. They're in my district. And obviously, the history of our water system is really important for folks that are going into this career to understand how really groundbreaking it was at the time 100 years ago, and still obviously is one of the top water systems in the country. So to work in those careers and to be a part of that, I think would be pretty amazing. So thanks.
Definitely. Thank you.
A very quick question with regard to the Be More Wise program. How many folks have gone through that program thus far? Is new? And how many folks have been referred by ROCA? And I think there was another partner, nonprofit partner that we were working with.
If you don't mind, I would like to have Ramona Harry, who oversees that program, to provide the details.
Good afternoon. Be More Wise is working with ROCA at this time. We had one meeting. We had approximately 35 participants from ROCA who attended our meeting. They had a very good one-on-one conversation with our director. They were able to relate, and we have application packages that we're beginning to process, get it to ROCA so that they can vet the participants. We have the same type of meeting that we're going to schedule with Park Heights so that we can get in front of their students and their participants so that we can finalize the class for the next fiscal year.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
That's it, thank you.
Okay, we're going to continue with the presentation, and then we're going to ask any additional questions at the conclusion of the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Moving into the division review, Water Facilities Division is in charge of drinking water delivery, the reservoirs, the treatment plants, Montebello, so on and so forth. And as I mentioned earlier, during the pandemic, the staff at all the plants, at the reservoirs, continued, showed up and made sure that there was no interruption to the delivery of drinking water. And the challenges that exist in this division will be similar to the other divisions: the vacancy rate, procurement, ensuring that the supply chain issues that we have been experiencing do not hamper our maintenance program, and then, of course, training. There are a total of 265 funded positions in that division and a vacancy rate of 29%. This graph shows you the a trend line of the million gallons of water treated per day on average, dating back to August of 2021. You will note that based on the design capacities of all the treatment plants, these averages are actually lower. So the demand isn't there, but we do have the capacity to increase if needed. I'm sorry, I missed a slide. This next KPI, or key performance indicator, is cost per treatment. When compared to peers around the nation, as I mentioned, the fact that we do not have to pump from our raw water reservoirs, our energy costs are lower than average. And this is the trend line showing the minor fluctuation in cost per million gallons based on monthly expenditures. The Wastewater Facilities Division is in charge of receiving and treating the wastewater from the region. The design capacity based on both plants' design is 250 million gallons per day. The key accomplishment that we have had in the last 6 to 8 months is preparing the wastewater laboratories for resumption of permitted analysis under MDE's permit. Key challenges, handling the biosolids at the treatment plants. Biosolids is essentially the separated solid matter from the wastewater flow. The liquid is allowed to go forward and be processed and treated. The solids have to be sequestered, if you will, and treated separately, and that process is a challenge that we're working through, along with staffing and training. There are a total of 539 funded positions with a vacancy rate of 30%. Some KPIs similar to the Water Facilities Division, the million gallons treated per day, dating back to July of 2020. Again, you see the total per month is below the actual design capacity, but there are months where there are spikes, and that's typically due to rain events. When you do have a rain event, based on the condition of the sanitary sewer system, if it is introducing a lot of rain flow inside the pipe, that just inflates or increases the flow into the plants. So the consent decree project, the ultimate goal of the consent decree project is to essentially seal the sanitary sewer system so that during rain events we do not have increased volume of wastewater. The second KPI, again, is for cost per treatment. You'll see the dollar figures are a little higher than the Water Facilities Division. The wastewater treatment plants in general are larger and a lot more assets, a lot more equipment, and a more complex process, so that is to be expected. The Office of Engineering and Construction is charged with overseeing all the capital improvement throughout the department, the planning, the design, and the construction. And the budget, the 6-year CIP is $2.3 billion. This upcoming proposed CIP for FY23, and for the year is $361 million. Some key accomplishments at the top left, you'll see again the Back River Headworks project. Since the completion of that project, we reduced wet weather sanitary sewer overflow by volume by 69%. And that chart also shows you, again, for wet weather SSOs, the reduction from the first quarter of 2020 to now. Key challenges, again, attracting and retaining staff, engineers, construction inspectors, so on and so forth, and then also awarding projects in a timely fashion. There are 150 funded positions and a 17% vacancy rate. With the capital improvement program, obviously there's as large as it is, there's a need to prioritize projects, and Baltimore City is one of the first cities in the country that implemented a integrated planning approach or integrated planning framework for the prioritization of capital projects. EPA came out with the guidance in 2012, and shortly thereafter, the city adopted an approach that looked at the quadruple bottom line, if you will, looking at the project implementation metrics, but also looking at economic, environmental, and social indicators. Over the years, we have enhanced that IPF and now incorporate more robustly equity into the prioritization. Essentially, when a project is delineated, the project manager is responsible for answering, for addressing the questions that affect that project addresses, whether it be it environmental, regulatory. Is it a regulatory-driven project, for instance, would be a key factor. If the answer is yes, then that particular project's weight is higher than a project that isn't regulatory-driven. What we have done to incorporate equity is that we have included an equity lens where once you're done ranking the project based on performance, we ask the question about whether this particular project is in a historically disadvantaged or economically distressed part of the city. If it is, the equity score is higher. Those two scores, the performance and the equity scores, are then combined to yield a combined score, and that combined score for that project is pitted up against all these other projects, and that's how we come up with our prioritization for capital improvement. Key performance indicators for that office. I mentioned earlier that we have a separate storm sewer system, and along with that, we have a permit with the state for the municipal separate storm sewer system, or MS4, that requires us to remove impervious surface throughout the city, thereby aiding in or ensuring that stormwater pollution is reduced. So that metric, along with the metrics for water main replacements, are key KPIs that we monitor consistently. So this image here that you have in the middle is the Jones Fall Drift Catcher. It is a best management practice for stormwater pollution that we maintain. And then on the right is a new water main that is being installed as part of our self-imposed 15-mile-per-year target for water main replacements. The next office, Office of Asset Management, is responsible for the overall strategy, asset management strategy. Where we want to be is in a balanced. We want to have a balanced approach to managing our assets, where our time and money isn't entirely dedicated to corrective action, but also preventive. So making sure that we can balance ourselves, and building the strategy to get there is the key responsibility for this Office of Asset Management. One of the projects that this office oversees is the large diameter transmission main preventive maintenance program. These large diameter transmission mains are highly pressurized. They are, because of their size, any failure would be catastrophic. So we have a very robust program where we assess the condition of these pipes through various indicators like wire breaks, and fiber optic cable that can identify for us through the use of technology if there is a problem area or area of concern. When that is identified, then we can proactively attack that particular area, make the necessary fix, and ensure that there is not going to be a failure. This office has a total of 40 funded positions and a vacancy rate of 13%. Again, there are three main sections within this office: one for planning and analysis. Data management is a key function for this group. Data analytics, making sure that we can use the data that we have to drive our decisions, and so that we can make better decisions. And then the third group is the preventive maintenance division. These charts or graphs are examples of data management or data analytics, where we compare ourselves to the benchmarks in the industry for metrics such as water main breaks as well as sanitary sewer overflows. finally, the Utility Maintenance Division. This is the most customer-facing division in the Bureau. These are the men and women that have been, again, added, through thick and thin, cold weather, winter freezes, pandemics. These men and women respond to emergencies such as water main breaks and SSOs, and provide the corrective maintenance for all our buried assets or buried infrastructure. Key challenges, again, the vacancy rates, as well as procurement of equipment and supplies. We have a total of 498 funded positions and a vacancy rate of 25%. This slide shows an example of one of the changes or business process improvements we have implemented within this division. Again, back to data analytics, ensuring that we can identify where our work is being spent, where our time is being spent, based on the various types of work orders, and using that to make the necessary changes to improve our process or performance. And I believe this is the last slide. So with that, that concludes the formal presentation, and I will take any
I want to
questions.
thank you all, obviously, for your thorough presentation that you put together. One item that I missed is that from the mayor's office, we did have Nina Themilis here, and also Sophia Gebron-Watt with us today. I'm going to go ahead and open the floor to our committee members who are still remaining for additional questions that they have. I'm going to go back to staffing for my question. And at the previous oversight hearing, Acting Bureau Head Moore Jackson, she stated that the Solid Waste Bureau had employee longevity and not many retirements. And I was wondering, can the same be said for the Bureau of Water and Wastewater?
You said longevity versus retirements?
Yes.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, well, let me go here. How many workers are eligible right now within your bureau for retirement?
I would have to get those numbers for you. I don't know if we have that right offhand.
Okay. Can we just make sure that that item is furnished to the committee?
Sure.
And I'm going to move on to another area. And this is regarding the most recent biennial performance audit of the departments. And actually, this is likely not for you. Even though, in committee members, even though we have the Bureau of Water and Wastewater here, we also have representatives from our customer, I believe it's Customer Service and Support Division, which is actually under the Director's Office and led by Deputy Director Garbart. So I think this question is actually going to be related for that. So thank you, okay. Bureau Head Cabetti. Regarding the most recent biennial performance audit of the department's water billing processes, I just want to know, what has DPW done to implement the recommendations? What additional actions are planned, and what is the expected timeline for completion?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm Matt Garbart, Deputy Director for the Department of Public Works. The audit was quite thorough in its review of the water billing and metering system. We concurred with all the findings. They relate to various aspects of the billing and metering program, and they note that SOPs and policies and other training things need to be documented. We are, in fact, doing that. We have drafted SOPs that are going to be put into effect and codified. We actually are in the midst of doing a complete, comprehensive overview and rewrite of our SOP manual for the water billing and metering division. And we are having a whole day sort of summit or event with all of the team members who are going to go through and get together to write and brainstorm how best to implement those SOPs. That was the main issue. We've also invested in considerable training from customer service, just how to engage in customer service, all of those issues, and we are engaging in technical training regarding our billing system, as well as our actual metering system and our new use of technology through our vendor, Itron, with our metering system. So we have a new training room that we've established at our meter shop. We are undergoing training there, technical training for the use of tablets and other machinery for programming the meters. We've, for the last 3 or 4 weeks, done daily billing training sessions with our billing staff. And also, in another part of the building, we have done daily customer service training for our call center staff. So we believe that all of this is going to be completed probably by June or July, at least with the training and then documenting those SOPs. So we feel very good about where we are. And that's all related to the customer turnaround initiative Director Mitchell and Mayor Scott initiated, where we've worked very hard to improve our processes, which is how we're able to put forward a 3% increase rather than some of the higher percentage increases of the past.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Before I get to my other committee members, we're going to move to the Water for All program. A few questions. Just wanted to know how many households are participating within the program, and what's the average water bill discount through the program?
Those are, I have that information. Actually, I was just given it by Ms. Collins. We can get that information for you by the end of the hearing.
Okay, that'll
or
work.
at the latest tomorrow.
So I have 2 additional questions. If you don't have the answers, can you also furnish that information to the committee
Absolutely.
at one time? So I want to know what's the average processing time for the Water for All program applications? And also, how many Water for All program applications have been rejected, and what are the primary reasons for the rejection?
Certainly.
Thank you, Deputy Director. And we're going to move to Councilman Torrance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Deputy Director, you might as well hold on to the mic. I have a series of questions. So I hear often from our agencies, training. My question is now fidelity, right? What is the fidelity in the compliance checks? Because there's a difference between I trained you and I released you, but how am I checking to make sure that John got trained on June 6th, and now November 6th, I'm doing a check on whether or not he's following those SOPs? And then, if he's not following the SOPs, how am I retraining him again and looking at where the costs are too? Because after a while, what are the improvements? So my question is, when are we going to start our fidelity checks and also compliance checks to be respondent to not only the audits but also the training and what we've seen that may not work from the trainings?
Thank you very much, Councilman. You're absolutely right. It's a waste of time if we don't actually have a way to go back and check that it's actually being adhered to. So what we built in with our training modules is testing and assessments. So at the end of the modules, and they're open book, but they are questions, they are assessments that every customer care analyst has to do for them to actually go back on the floor and actually continue their work. If they don't pass it, then they'll be trained again. If they don't pass it a second time, we will work with them and see where those issues are and specifically try to get them back to a place that they can pass it. But those are our initial assessments that help us gauge where we actually are. We will have not begun a disciplinary approach or anything like that, but that is where we would lead in terms of not being able to have those employees perform that particular type of work. The other thing we're doing is we have a quality assurance team that is listening in on calls. We play them back, we critique them, we figure out what was done properly, what wasn't done properly, so that we can actually go and measure performance. So those are 2 of the main issues that we're working on. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. We are also implementing a survey tool. So it'll be if a customer emails us, at the end of their inquiry, We will send them a survey. It'll be automatically generated when the case closes. It'll be a customer satisfaction survey. And we are working with the comptroller's office in the telecommunications division to implement a phone survey. After phone calls, they'll be able to be on the phone and then push, whatever the buttons are for satisfaction. Eventually, we haven't done it yet, but that will be used, and we'll be able to tie that to particular and specific customer care agents so that we can actually assess the satisfaction level for each agent.
That's great. Now I have another question for you, because again, with training and assessments, so you mentioned the disciplinary process, right? Fine, I passed that process. I've not been disciplined. We're listening on calls, right? But you may not catch the rate in which a person may be in compliance to our SOPs. So my question to you, are we doing active data polls to see what satisfaction is? Are we looking at how we're discounting people's bills to say that maybe John is randomly doing $50 for this, and then it's something that we find through data cleansing that's like consistent? Because what I've learned from pulling data in the city government is that the data cleansing in terms of not only your agency but other agencies is totally out of data governance. There is misspelled words, there are missed things. So how are we using the data appropriately to cleanse it, but also using it to make it actionable? Because listening on the call is just, listening on the call is just, it's qualitative, right? I need quantitative, like understanding how many cases are closing, how accurate those cases are being closed. Because if John is giving a $50 rebate to every caller that he gets, are we catching that and noticing that that's a trend among that one agent?
Yes. So that's an excellent point. We are one of, if not the most data-rich agencies, and we do struggle, admittedly, in some of that actionable, turning raw information into actionable data. One of the things that Director Mitchell has implemented is we're creating a data unit for CSSD in the meter shop. We are building that out with data scientists and data engineers and using our Office of Information Technology to build a dashboard as well as specific reports. We're using the vendors as well to help us create those reports. It's going to provide us clear, unvarnished data. So it's going to show us where gaps are. It's going to show us what the problems are so that we can actually go back and fix them and start monitoring those issues.
So I would like to have like a separate offline meeting about that data richness, because I want to know specifically, one, there's a script that the agent gets, but also how are they inputting the data? Are there drop-down menus? Are those things that are user-friendly so that we can capture that data? Because what I found from just seeing data pulls is that Ms. Johnson's name is spelled wrong, and that's held up issues with processing people's things because information was wrong, wrongly inputted. So I'm just trying to figure out, one, we get to training, but how do we make sure that the everyday usage for our employees makes it easier for them to stay compliant, and we use actionable data? So I just want to learn more about that.
Certainly.
I don't want to belabor for the rest of the evening.
Happy to follow up there. As you mentioned, there's a number of different systems. They don't necessarily contact or talk to each other. There's manual entry. We're working to fix all of that and have it seamless, so we're happy to meet with you. Yes, sir.
We're going to go to Councilwoman Ramos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The information that the chairwoman asked for, it would be wonderful to have for the hearing tomorrow, which is
Yes, ma'am.
specifically around the Water for All program and the implementation of the Water Equity and Affordability Act. So thank you, Madam Chair, for asking those questions as a precursor for that. I have a bunch of questions around that I will save for tomorrow's hearing, and I'll send them to you ahead of time tomorrow. I was supposed to do it today, and I'm sorry I didn't do that. So my question is a totally different subject regarding backwater, back river, and we are, I know the councilman has introduced a hearing on that, and I'm sure we'll have more discussion about back river as well, but can you tell us, director or anyone on the team, what the latest status is of Back River? I have actually had a conversation with MES, so I'm interested to know a little bit more about what DPW's side of things is. And again, we're going to have a whole hearing about this, so this is, I think Madam Chair is asking us not to do as many questions about this, but we're going to have a whole hearing about it, but I just thought we would get a little bit of details.
Good evening. I'm Darnell Ingham, General Counsel, Chief Compliance Officer for Department of Public Works. Currently, there is a lawsuit filed by Blue Water Baltimore, as well as the state, and also Baltimore State has filed legal action against the Maryland Department of Environment. These matters are in litigation and with hopes of a resolution in the consent decree. But this matter is still pending, so much information about it is in the lawyer's hands at this time. So I'm unable to comment much about it at this point.
There's actually a lot of commentary from the press releases and stuff that we've been getting from the department. Do you want to reiterate what some of the things are that are in those press releases?
Sure. So a few of the press releases discusses the order that was provided by the former Secretary Grumbles of MD, essentially ordering that the state take over the Back River Wastewater Treatment Plant, and ordered that MES provide the services or the takeover services for the Back River Wastewater Treatment Plant. The parties have been in collaborative discussions and meetings to ensure that the plant continues to provide the services to the constituents in this region. To be clear, there is no raw waste going into any of our waterways in our region and in our county. In addition, the parties are working to also identify solutions, long-term solutions, to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
So if I may, Madam Chair, it sounded to me that there was a lot of communication and collaboration between the department and MES for the last few years, basically 2 years, to try to get the plant into compliance. And then all of a sudden, again, this is what I read in the public information that was provided, all of a sudden it was like out of the blue that the state took over. And from what I hear from MES, that's not actually the case, where they kind of felt like there wasn't enough happening. So I don't know whether we want to get into this right now, but at least in preparation of the larger hearing, and I understand there's all kinds of lawsuits and litigation, but I think from our perspective, we want to understand what happened, what's been happening, what's planned on happening moving forward, the cost of all of this, as well as, making sure that it, like you said, doesn't happen again. So I guess we could use this as a precursor to the hearing, but, an answer of, where everything is in litigation isn't going to be acceptable for that particular hearing or now.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ramos. Knowing that, I do have an additional question. Knowing that we are in litigation right now, I do want to know, how has DPW engaged, impacted community members or all community city residents in having open dialogues or answering any questions that come through regarding the issues surrounding backwater? Just want to know what strategies have we taken outside of press releases to communicate with residents and restore some folks who may have lost confidence in DPW's handling of treatment facilities?
Thank you for that, Madam Chair. Last week, Department of Public Works issued a press release informing the public of updates of the status of the Black River Wastewater Treatment Plant, and we hope to do periodic updates to inform the public of where we are, statuses, and also discussing short and long-term goals to ensure that this doesn't happen again as well.
Are we looking at any other strategies outside of press releases at this time?
Madam Chair, thank you for the question. Again, Jason Mitchell, Director of DPW. we are looking at strategies that we can deploy to engage the public on what's going on, but also be able to communicate what we're doing. As you know, or may not know, we issued a short, medium, and long-term fix for Back River and Patapsco wastewater treatment plant, understanding that it would take time for us to get to where we need, to your point. And so our main point of contact is giving updates. Also, MDE is providing updates on their website, I think bi-weekly, where you can get more information on what's going on at the treatment plant. I think as we get further in the process, we will have even more robust communications. Right now, we've been working collaborative with MDE, MES, just so that we can stabilize and know our path forward so that we can be able to provide more robust answers and engagement with the public.
And I'm just saying that knowing that there are just a few things, not a few things, but there are some items that we're not going to be able to discuss because you're in litigation. The city's in litigation. So what I want to make sure that we are doing is making sure that there are avenues and options that community residents, when they want to know what's happening, that they have an opportunity or some space to go to get all of this information from the city.
Yeah.
And that's it. We're going to table, we do have a hearing. We do have a resolution from Councilman Conway about this matter. So we're going to table any additional questions regarding this. But Councilman Conway, if you had any other questions that you wanted to ask.
I do. I have a couple of questions, and I'm trying to not get too much into that hearing today because I realize we're going to need a lot more time probably and a lot more nuance in discussing the issue given the litigation. I would like to know, do we, at the moment, do we track the percentage of time that we don't meet the end-of-pipe standards for our treatment centers? Of course we do. I think we're mandated to do so.
Can you repeat yourself?
How do we track the percentage of times that we don't meet the standard for the effluent coming out of, or maybe not effluent, it shouldn't be effluent, but do we currently track that, right?
Right. So, I mean, that's a wonderful question. There's a lot of science behind this, and I don't know, this would probably be better suited for another hearing to really walk through the technical components of our permit and our requirements and how we report. But we report our effluent levels every month, and they're public. People have access to it, and we have internal controls here in the agency to monitor it. And so, and we also have environmental regulatory compliance group that we're building up to ensure that this never happens again. This is a very old structure, and there are many nuances to this issue. And in another hearing, we'll provide the technical expertise to walk you through some of these scientific issues related to this. And what I can say is that this will all resolve in a consent decree, and the reason why we want to reserve these discussions so the parties can resolve it so that we can then have the more transparent discussion. There are many components of this that we would like to table at another time so that the parties can resolve and we mitigate any risk to the city. And there are many components of that I would love to share, but at this point, in the best interest of the city, we should table that at another time. However, I can say that the governance of, upon Director Mitchell's arrival and him being aware of these issues last year and bringing aboard his team, the governance structure is in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And we're building a robust program, compliance program, to ensure that this is institutionalized as to how we monitor these things moving forward, and to ensure that the internal controls in place so that the parties, i.e. the officials within the organizations, are aware and can respond appropriately in a timely manner moving forward. And the consent decree will also be a part of that issue as well, to monitor the city.
I just want to appreciate that you are such a lawyer, and I appreciate. I know you're towing the line to try to sort of answer the question without getting. I appreciate that, and Would it be possible, since this is public information, could you share that with the committee? I think it is helpful for us to understand that. And I would also say that for our performance metrics going forward for this hearing, I think it's important that we look at that. We look at currently cost effectiveness, and I think that is important, but that's not helpful if we don't know if we're actually meeting our standard. So that we should be looking at that as well. So that's why I asked the question. So if you could share that, that would be really helpful. I have other questions that are that pertain to that hearing to come. I'm going to try and stay away from those. I was sort of curious. We talked a little bit about the separate sewer stormwater system, the S4, and that there was that graph that explained that during rain events, or Chief, you explained during rain events that we see a spike in treated water. Why does that happen if we have a separate sewer system? Why does that happen, and why does it happen so dramatically? Of course, if it does overflow, from the street into someone's basement, perhaps I could see that happening, but it should be few and far between. So can you give me a little bit of explanation as to what's actually going on there?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So our sanitary sewer system, as you know, is fairly old, and there is a consent decree that's the express purpose of which is to rehabilitate this very old system. The really old pipes have various cracks and structural integrity issues that introduce inflow and infiltration, or I&I. So I&I is a critical pain point for us as a city, because it is when it rains or when groundwater infiltrates through those cracks and openings that the volume builds up in a pipe. So it's carrying more than the sanitary waste. It's carrying whatever else is introduced to it by these cracks or through these cracks. So when it rains, that's when it's even more elevated. That water finds itself, going below ground and into the pipe, and eventually that pipe is going to convey sewage and stormwater to our treatment plant. So they'll be seeing, on average, it might be 120 million gallons per day. In a heavy rain event, we can literally double that flow rate into the pipe, into the treatment plant. Now, one of the good things about what we've done with our capital investment is the Headworks project includes 2 storage tanks. They're each 18 million gallons. So now when we do have a rain event that is increasing the flow rate into the treatment plant, we're able to route that automatically to those tanks, allows the flow to equalize, and basically normalizes the process within the plant.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. The other question has to do with, and it's my last question, has to do with the replacements. And we set a goal for 15. We didn't state in the course of this presentation what our actual replacement was. Would you mind providing that for the last maybe 5 years to the committee if you don't have it today?
I do have the numbers. I will say that this fiscal year we are not going to meet the 15-mile target due to COVID, supply chain issues, the length of time to get contracts in place. We are probably going to be at about 5 miles. Next fiscal year, we are slated to get to 20 miles. So slowly, as we, it is hard to tell whether the supply chain issues will be gone in the next few months or not, but we do have a plan in place to get 20 next year. But I can get you the previous years dating back to 2013 when the 15-mile target was originally set.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to add one thing, if that's okay. I need to leave, but I just wanted to thank the department for all the work you're doing in my flood area on 35th and Hillen. Super excited for the June 8th meeting when we get to reveal, well, you all get to reveal what our plans are for addressing that. And thank you, Madam Chair, for your help on that as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ramos. I just have 2 additional questions. And the first one is going to be, how does the Bureau ensure worker safety at its facilities and work sites, and how are Bureau employees held accountable for safety violations?
Good evening again. As a role of General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer, part of my role is to oversee the compliance initiatives within the organization, QA/QC as well. And one of the things is to look at holistically how we look at safety, from training, from awareness and being able to report these issues, as well as our responsive time to address safety issues. I just want to highlight as well my Chief of Compliance and Research, Kim Grove, is here, and she's working with us to build an exhaustive compliance program in conjunction with our safety officer, Barbara Rogers, who goes out and does the inspections, and she does quarterly inspections and biannual, monthly, depending on the need of the facility, as well as we address how to remedy them, both from training as well as through construction activities or audits as well, and then we respond accordingly.
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question. This is just going to be a heads up for your actual upcoming budget hearing. What capital improvements are we making for safety for our employees as well? I just want to make sure that we have that in our mindset as well, because I know some of our facilities, especially for non-cisgender men and women, aren't equal. And I'm going to just say that out loud, that they aren't equal. There are some facilities that are lacking for women that we need to be clear in looking at that safety-wise. I just want to make sure that we highlight those improvements as well, because I know that was an issue that came up before because of equity issues. And I just want to make sure that that is still on the lens for moving forward as well, because not only do we have the safety updates, but also how we affirm how people actually walk into an environment that's welcoming and says that you are a valued employee as well.
Thank you. I have one additional question. This is a constituent question. In regards to stormwater management, what green infrastructure has DPW installed to improve the quality of our streams and the harbor?
Good evening. My name is Kim Grove, and I'm the Chief of the Office of Compliance and Research. I also serve as the MS4 manager for the city. Over the last 10 years, the majority of the way that we have approached the requirements under our MS4 permit to restore impervious area, meaning that we're reducing the pollutants that would be in the runoff, that's been primarily met through street sweeping, as well as programs like inlet cleaning or recognizing redevelopment projects that have added stormwater facilities in meeting their development requirements, but not adding to the pollution. As far as the capital improvement projects, the majority of the projects that have been completed by the Office of Engineering and Construction have included stream restoration projects, and then a few smaller projects, still less than 10 at this point, of the like a microbiome retention or an impervious area removal. There are several more that are in the process of either completing the design or about to be bid out for construction within this next year. And for this upcoming permit that has, when I say upcoming, the one that was just issued in November, about half of the requirement that we have for impervious area restoration will be done through our capital improvement projects, with a large portion still being met with the stream restoration, but still a lot of the types of projects like the bioretention, as well as outfall stabilization, and we're going to be working with Recreation and Parks at looking at soil amendments to improve porosity and infiltration in areas that are not near our sanitary pipes. So now we're making this connection a little bit better. We do want to improve infiltration in a lot of our soils, but we want to do it in the right spaces so that they are not compromising our other environmental mandates. So Hopefully that answers your question.
It did. Thank you, Ms. Grove. Do we have any additional questions?
You look this way, so I'm going to have a question.
Okay.
All right, just one more, I promise. You talked a little bit about our difficulty attracting and retaining staff. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I think the bottom line is, being competitive in terms of compensation. So that's one area that we struggle in. Besides compensation, it's also about building a culture that is inviting for employees. So gauging the morale of our workforce, listening to employees, getting their feedback on what's working and what's not is really a critical part of trying to solve the retention issue. Beyond that, the Be More Wise program that we mentioned, we're reaching back to 15-year-olds with the hope that as we do that, when they do become of age, employable, DPW will be an employer of choice.
Do we currently do exit interviews that we can refer to for data on seeing in the last maybe 2 years why folks have left the department? And do we have that information? Is that available?
We do exit interviews. In fact, what we do also is we have the knowledge capture process where it's beyond just asking the question about why you're leaving. It's about making sure that the institutional knowledge does not leave and retaining that institutional knowledge. But I don't have any data on the reasons for the departures. But we can definitely, if you would like, we can provide that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because I think it's not an issue that's just for the department. It's for every department. It's, I'll say, for my office too. We see attrition as well. So whatever we can do to be more thoughtful about keeping folks with the city and attracting folks to the city is going to be a huge boon to us across the board and hopefully resolve some of the issues that we've seen in various departments throughout the pandemic, whether it be solid waste or water and wastewater, as a result of attrition. So just wanted, if you could share that, that would be really helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move into the public testimony portion. We did just check. We didn't see any members from the public, but I do want to give just a few seconds in case someone is here and they would like to testify. Okay, so that's going to conclude public testimony. I want to thank Director Mitchell, your entire team, Bureau Head Kabetti, for being with us this evening. We truly appreciate you all. Thank you for joining us in the next quarterly legislative oversight hearing on the Department of Public Works is going to be scheduled for August 17, 2022. The hearing is now in recess.